There it is. All right, we're in. We're here. It's another beautiful day. Excited for this one because we're going to be talking about another whole new word. All words are made up, but this one's relationship permaculturalist. We're gonna have some fun. See what that means and what else we can learn today. Here we go.
Practicing polyamory. Real-life perspectives from the imperfect people of polyamory. The mission of the Practicing Polyamory podcast is to provide a platform for all of the real-life, flawed humans that practice polyamory so that we might all learn from one another and grow as a community. Enjoy the show.
All right. Welcome everybody to this beautiful Wednesday. Before we jump in and chat with our awesome guest, I want to quickly remind everybody to please follow the show on all social media platforms, especially Facebook and Instagram, where we're most active. You can find us everywhere at Practicing Polya. Following and sharing the content is a free and easy way to support the show. We'll really appreciate every single one of you for it. Speaking of free and easy ways to support the show, the best way is to subscribe and share. If you find value in what we're doing here, share it with your polycule, share it with your friends, share it far and wide, especially in your poly Facebook groups, and subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it is that you download podcasts. And lastly, scheduling for season 1 of the Practicing Polyamory podcast is almost closed. Now, my mission is to get as many differing and inclusive voices on this show, and I need your help. To get some POC representation up in here. Next season is going to be much different, I promise. So as always, I want to remind you, if you're listening to this podcast, you are a welcome guest to be on this show. My job as your host is to be actively inclusive, because I know that the more stories we hear, the more representation we have, the more others see us in themselves, and the better we can serve our community. So POC folks, go to practicingpolyamory.com, sign up today for those last few spots available in season 1, which ends Halloween. All right, that's my spiel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to the best part of the show, introducing our awesome guest. Today's guest is a poet, author, storyteller, and a non-monogamous relationship consultant who's been living a non-monogamous lifestyle since before the internet was able to connect us all in a community like today. For the past 20 plus years, she's been a perfectly imperfect human and has made plenty of opportunity for growth mistakes. She's learned hard lessons about don't ask, don't tell agreements, dealing with jealousy, disclosing non-monogamy to friends, and largely disapproving a religious family, and the importance of building community. She's deeply passionate about relationships, including the web of interconnections between people and the natural world, and her passion drives her to help build stronger, more resilient connections, and navigate the often confusing discourse on alternative relationship choices like polyamory, open marriages, and swinging. Now, she personally identifies as a relationship permaculturalist, which is something I'm excited to jump into and learn more about. So without further ado, joining us today out of Portland, Oregon, from Radically Rooted Consulting, welcome to the show, Tanya Jarvik. Hey there. Hey. Sorry, I got distracted with the song. Tanya, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Just got my second vax, so other than that, life is normal. Life's good. It's cloudy in Portland.
I mean, typical Pacific Northwest. You just got your second vax today?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for hanging out. How are you feeling so far?
Fine.
Good. Hopefully that holds up. So, Tanya, you have been in the... Stop doing that. You have been in the non-monogamous lifestyle, practicing for a really long time, before the internet was able to connect us all, before there were books, before all of this stuff. So you had
coaches and, horses were pulling them. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't mean to bring you that far back. I'm not trying to.
Oh, hell no.
I know, right? But I mean, some of the famous books that we have that are available to us now, the Ethical Slut, More Than Two, Love's Not Colorblind, The Polyamorous Next Door, all of these different books just weren't available when you started out. So I'm curious about your journey early on navigating all of this. And eventually we're going to get to this, how you develop this term of relationship permaculturalist. But tell me first about that early stage, those early days before there was community.
Yeah, well, so I think I was just starting to figure out how to send my first emails from a school account. Like this is where the internet was. I and my partner got married at 19. I think because we met each other when we were 11, so then it felt like we'd known each other a really long time. And when we got married, we had this conversation that was like, hey, we've never really dated anybody else, so we don't want to be old and upset when we're like 30 and we never had any other experience. So why don't
Old
we
at 30.
Old and 30, right? So why don't we just agree that if either of us wants to date somebody else when we're old and 30, we'll just be honest about it, and it doesn't mean we have to break up. It was like we were inventing this concept. That's what it felt like at the time.
Yeah.
So that was our agreement, getting married so young, and nothing really happened with that. It wasn't like we had an actively open marriage for the first several years. But probably 5 years into the marriage, I developed this huge crush on somebody in my graduate program and realized, oh, the time has come to revisit that agreement of when we got married. Like, did you actually mean that back when we had that talk? And so I remember being kind of petrified to talk to my husband about it, and nothing had happened between me and this love interest except that we'd confessed our mutual attraction to each other. I was nervous. I didn't have any idea what my husband was actually going to say, and I asked him, hey, so I've got this crush on this friend of mine, about that, but I'm thinking I might want to do something about it. Remember that conversation we had about monogamy is not like, we're not expecting that if something's really important to us. And, like, would you still be happy with me if I ended up having sex with this person? And my husband said, well, if you're happy, why would I be unhappy about it? Which was a really sweet thing for him to say.
Oh my God. That is, dream come true.
Right? Okay. Well, it wasn't as easy as all that.
Okay.
Like there was actually,
it's worse. It's so much worse.
After I took that as a go ahead, we definitely had to do that whole jealousy roller coaster bit. But we did have a good understanding going in, which enabled us to work through that. There were a whole bunch of other things about that situation that were not so great, like that the person I was involved with was also, had a person who was important to him, who he wasn't telling. He wasn't really being totally upfront with her, and I rationalized this as, well, that's not my business what he does.
Yep. And, been there.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the only time I did that. But yeah, so I and that person weathered the end of his other relationship, which, for obvious reasons, that didn't work out so well, that he wasn't telling her. And we're together about 6 years. And then after that, my husband ended up, and at this point, I don't call my husband. I mean, like, I don't know. Now I have 2 husbands or 2 partners, or I don't even know what to call these people. Okay. But like, and the person that I'm talking about that I got together with when I was 19 now identifies as non-binary. So like, what do you do with all these labels? So I'm kind of using the historical label.
Understood.
Anyway, he got really interested in somebody, and that he ended up being together with for about 8 years. And so I had to then go through all that stuff myself. And that was around the time when we started developing community around it. So
Okay.
it was really a good 6-7 years of feeling like we don't know anybody
Mm-hmm.
else in the world who's doing this. I had never heard the term polyamory until maybe 5 years into practicing it. I was at a party and I was trying to explain to some new acquaintance my situation. I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm married, but oh, I also have this boyfriend, and well, and she said, oh, you're poly, which at the time that was what people said. They didn't say
Mm-hmm.
polyam. She said you're
Right, right.
poly. And what I heard was you're poly, Polly, like the name.
No. That's not my name.
No. It was, and then it took like a while for the frayed ends of my my conduits to connect. I was like, oh, poly, like polyglot, polyhedron. I get it. Yeah.
And so when you heard the term, was it like a life-changing game changer? Did it just kind of solidify that you weren't alone?
Well, I think initially it solidified that I wasn't alone. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then it turned out that there was like a magazine, Loving More, and there was a nascent internet community, and and that was a little weird because I looked at that stuff and I thought, but see, that doesn't feel like me. I didn't really identify with that nascent community. It didn't I didn't feel like I had found my community.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really great. And as time has gone on, I have more and more found my people.
Right.
So yeah.
That's the next thing since you mentioned it, that's kind of the next progression. You mentioned at the end of those 6-year and 8-year relationships that you and your partner had, back then, that you finally did find community, or you started to build and create your own community, and now you even feel like you've found more of your community. What does community mean to you, and what was the main differences between what you saw in the magazines and that early internet group versus what you found towards the end of those relationships? What made the community meaningful to you?
Well, I think participating in it and contributing to it. And also just, there are so many more people who are in alternative relationships now than there were. After that 6-year and 8-year relationship, that only gets us up to, let's see, what, I don't know, 1998, 2000. That's not even, that's like, we still got 10 years or something.
Wow.
Yeah. So initially, I connected with a local polyamorous group online in Arizona, and I was like, well, some of these people are kind of my people, but they all ride motorcycles for whatever reason,
because motorcycles are awesome. Sorry, I ride a Harley.
totally awesome. Okay. But I, as a non-motorcycle, and I didn't own one. So I thought, oh, can I even go to these meetings? I'm just like, I'm a pretender. I don't have a motorcycle. So just finding, so it wasn't really until we moved to Portland in, I'd say 2012, that 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. That's really when I felt like we clicked with people in the community and have been, but there was some of that before then. In the Burning Man community in Arizona, we found some great friends. There's a triad, for example, that we know through Burning Man, which my partner was super into, and they're still together. There's another triad that I know from our California graduate school days, still together. So it's not like there was no community, back then it just really felt much more like being pioneers, like
Mm-hmm.
we're making this up. And now I'm so relieved that so many other people are doing this good work, and I'm it's not just me.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the things that you said that stood out to me was that part of what makes community meaningful is participating.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, that has been something that's been standing out to me a lot, and I guess it's kind of why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Is trying to be,
Yeah.
trying to do something that involves the community, and just seeing how I can bring more people together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, let's get into this fun stuff. Let's get into this relationship permaculturalist. I love learning new words and hearing people's different opinions on things. So I'm really curious what this means to you.
Well, James, I was just thinking there are not enough weird esoteric terms, and we need to have more of them, right? So
I like it. I like it.
I'm totally joking. I mean, I feel a little goofy about it, honestly. Okay, but so I have lived in co-housing or like eco villages most of my adult life. And so if you're into gardening and you're into like the whole eco village scene, you probably might have heard of the term permaculture applied to like plants, right? I mean, maybe you haven't, but that's
I hadn't, and I did not Google it because I just wanted to hear it from you.
Okay, well, it's it's a term it's just like people who are really geeking out on gardening will know this term. And the basic gist is you're looking for how to cultivate plants it's closer to what a natural system would be. So there are principles like care for the earth, care for the people, and fair share. So it's like not monocropping. It's not your ginormous field of just one kind of potato that you're dumping Roundup on, right? So you're trying to create a natural system that's self-sustaining. And so I just borrowed that term because what I have noticed over the years of looking at polyamorous communities and then also relationship anarchy is that there's not, I sort of started feeling like maybe there's not a systems approach to the thing. And like what I see in polyamory is some of the same problems that you see in just dyadic relationships, except bigger, right? So now you have a lot of enmeshment and codependency and drama and people spending all day communicating. And how sustainable is that on a community level when you have people who are so preoccupied with their personal relationships that they don't have time for anything else? So I was concerned about that, although there's so many great things about polyamory that are, I feel like a correction to not monogamy, but let's call it toxic monogamy. All right. Like that field of potatoes that's getting sprayed with Roundups kind of.
Right.
That's great. But then I feel like relationship anarchy was an attempt to correct some of that stuff by people taking responsibility for themselves. It's much more individualistic. And puts more emphasis on autonomy. But then I also feel like sometimes community doesn't figure in. So that was why I decided that I was going to make up my own term.
Like I said, all terms, all words are made up. And I love this idea. When you use that analogy of the like plant ecosystem, and you have all of these different plants that work together and create a system within itself, and you kind of relate that, you transpose that to relationships. You're in this ecosystem, and the way that you nurture and care for each relationship gives you the possibility to I don't know, create like your own bubble, create your own, the polycule that you create is one that is self-sustaining, like one feeds the other, and it's just a community type of thing. I don't know. I love it. It's like you're building your own zombie apocalypse team, basically.
Well, we need that. We need that.
Yeah.
we all need that plan in place.
We definitely do. I want to hear a little bit more about you. One of the things that I have been talking to people about, one of the things that I've been asking a lot of my guests about is that divide that happens. Now, you grew up from what I read and from what I talked about in the introduction. You grew up in a deeply religious household.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that, in your younger years, you took a lot of that on yourself, and then you discovered, in your own way, that it wasn't for you. So I want to talk to you a little bit and just ask you kind of about that journey and how you reconciled yourself to yourself after you said, you know what, religion isn't for me.
Oh, well, that's a question I was not expecting. Well, it's kind of funny. So my family is Mormon, and like back to pioneer days, all of everybody. So big Mormon family. Nobody was like actually polygamous, but we all know that there's some history back in the 1800s, right? The founder of the Mormon church was polygamous, had many wives. And so I think that background did kind of prime me for, so, I have a great grandmother who was somebody's third wife. And I always felt growing up like, well, this is so unfair. Why couldn't why can't women have multiple husbands? I gotta like fix that. So
early activism.
Right. So then that kind of merged with my my nascent feminism that I was like in college. So I actually went to Brigham Young University, which is the Mormon religious university, for 1 year. And I was kind of on the outs with, basically I had come to the conclusion that this was too limiting a worldview for me. And it didn't make sense with all the other thinkers that I was reading. And I was I was in that kind of space. And also I had this really kind of crazy experience with my then boyfriend. We weren't married yet, but I had decided that it would be okay to have sex with him. And then even though I wasn't supposed to, for religious reasons, and then my father found out about it, and it was this whole huge blow up, and it like completely ruined the summer after graduating from high school, the family trauma that happened around that. So here I am at a religious university, and then all my roommates decided that I had a bad spirit because I listened to Nirvana and painted my fingernails black. And
nice.
Yeah. And so I really felt like I was ejected from that community, and had to figure out where to go from there. And I think I went straight into scientific materialism. Like, all right, we're just, and started reading The Selfish Gene and evolutionary psychology and all this stuff. And it's been just very, very recently that I feel like I'm starting to revisit religion and spirituality more on my own terms as an outgrowth of my experience in relationships. And
what's that like?
I don't know. I'm starting to like, so like I've just been thinking about now, I've been thinking about how like, okay, I'm going to sound like a crazy person when I say this, but I feel like love is like that love is like almost this energetic substance. And I'm saying almost, like, I don't literally believe it's an energetic substance, but it acts that way. And
Mhm.
we are limiting it. We think it's rare and it's hard to find. And instead, it's actually abundant. But we have to realize that we are the source of that. We are love. Okay.
Yep.
And so, so that's what I mean. Like, I feel like that's almost a religious kind of a statement. But because it sounds like it doesn't belong with scientific materialism. Does that make sense?
I mean, it totally, it does. And I get where you're coming from. I get what you're saying. It doesn't feel like that scientific materialism. You're kind of adding this spiritual factor to love. But I mean, I don't know. I kind of agree with you. It is energetic. Like,
Yeah.
it does carry its own, beyond energy, just it's like a connection. And the way that love manifests in my life is really, really cool and interesting. And I don't know, I feel like it definitely connects me to a lot more people than maybe I even realize. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely connection there. So I don't
Hey,
know, I don't think you're crazy.
did you watch that? There was a movie about mushrooms, you know, and their mycelial web in the forest. And I kind of feel like that's what we're seeing with communities that are putting love and like at the center of their philosophy. I feel like we're making all these little connections with each other, and that can produce something, you know, in which the sum is greater, the you know, like that the whole is greater than the sum of its
Right.
parts, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? And I guess that's, as we're talking about it here, and I'm thinking about it, that's part of why, like, this show is important to me, is that it is, it's my love child, right?
Yes.
It's something that I enjoy doing. And I'm really having fun connecting with all kinds of people. It's part of the reason why I chose the rainbow backdrop over here, because to me the rainbow is love, right? It's like,
Yeah.
there's so much love available, and just pouring out from all of us in the community. And so this whole thing is just my way of trying to bring that all together as one. What is something that you feel is like an important thing, like just a lesson, like a one thing that you could leave with the audience from all of your different experiences? What's that one major lesson? Maybe it's a recent one. I don't know. You're laughing a little bit. You're like,
Well, you know, like, oh, pick one thing. Pick
yeah,
like
pick
one
one.
thing. Okay, well, the most important thing for reals is the thing I already touched on, I think, which is that I think we really we really limit ourselves if we subscribe to a scarcity mindset around love. Like that it's a scarce resource and we have to compete to get it somewhere external from us, instead of it's our responsibility. I will even say sacred responsibility as human beings to try to be loving to other people, like to contribute, going back to what we talked about, to the community. What can I contribute to other people's happiness? What can I contribute to having a more resilient community, instead of like, how do I get love? How do I fix myself so that I deserve love? You know, it's like we got to switch that around. So that's the thing that I would say is like most important to me. But I think that's a hard thing to just like put in like a little pithy thing. So if you want like a little pithy thing, I would say don't make the mistake of letting your ideas about relationships get in the way of authentic relating.
Ooh,
There's my like little pithy
I like
sentence.
that one. I like that one. I put that one in a quote card and get that one
Okay.
going.
All right.
But okay, don't let your ideas about relating get in the way of relationships, get in the way of authentic relating.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you to dig a little bit more on that. That's a great quote to start things off. What does that mean?
Well, I think it means, well, let's just give like a really easy example. If somebody's out dating and they've got like this idea of what their ideal partner is, let's say, and then they've got this whole like long laundry list of what they're looking for in a person. Now they're trying to like find a person who fits that list, and they might not even be seeing the gift of the person who's sitting in front of them, because they're so convinced that they want a specific kind of relationship and that only a specific kind of person is going to fit that, that they can't see what kind of relationship might be possible with the actual person sitting in front of them. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. It even sounds like good dating advice,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, how many posts do we see in, I don't know how many Facebook groups you're in, but I'm in a bunch of them, and I see it all the time. I can't find anybody to date. I can't find anybody, always looking for whatever, the people to connect with. And I'm like, first of all, dating monogamously is hard, right? Like that's to find somebody that you connect with is a rare thing. But what you're saying is there's people that you can connect with, and you maybe have these ideas of what that connection should look like. But if you do away with those ideas, you might find
Yeah.
something that's already there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so many people are just sure that having a relationship means, and then they've got all these like preconceived notions about what it means. And if you dig into it, it's like, oh, well, I want like kitchen table polyamory, and I
Hmm.
want like, and my person is going to they're going to be funny, and they're going to have all these skills, and also they're going to get along with my partners, and also they're right. And it's like, yeah, so but what about what's the gift of the actual connection that you could have with the actual person that
But
you're
it's okay
yeah.
to have preferences, though, right?
It's Of course it is. Of course it is. It's okay to have preferences. I just think that I'm not saying, oh, you could take into your household as your nesting partner just any random person you find on the street. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we overlook what is possible in connecting with a person if we're lugging around a wheelbarrow full of expectations and assumptions about what we need in our lives. Yeah, and I think we all need to have boundaries around, you know what? There are things I don't there are types of people I don't want to interact with. I mean, all of that's fine. Because we have to take care of ourselves, I just mean being a little bit more curious about who is this person and what might be possible with them, based on experience, hopefully, and some wisdom about what not to try.
Yep, yep. So preference is good, but also flexibility.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. Well, Tanya, thank you so very much for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate your time. The last thing I want to do before we head off is to ask you, if somebody wanted to work with you, if somebody feels like they've got a good connection with you, and they'd like to maybe get some advice and work with you, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with them? And remember, we have a listening audience.
Yeah. So my website's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. It's www.radicallyrooted.com. So radically, like a radical, radically rooted. It's the permaculture theme. So yeah, and I have an online scheduler, and people can do a free 15-minute phone consult if they they're thinking they're interested, but they're not sure that they want to commit to a full-on session.
Any limits to geography?
Well, obviously, I only see people in person if they're local. But
Unless they want to fly out to you.
That's right. That's right. I do.
Or fly you out?
I have out-of-state clients, and most of my out-of-state clients are phone, like by phone. Although I do Zoom if I absolutely have to, but honestly, it's not my fave. Mm-hmm. I'll be real here. I am so old school. I really am that hippie out in the garden.
Nice. All right, so mostly in person or by phone.
Yep. But
all right.
I will do Zoom or FaceTime if it's absolutely necessary. And I do have a few clients that I do that with. It's just like I'm not like rushing to sign up a lot of more Zoom in my life.
Cool. And can you tell?
Fine by me.
He's back. And can you tell me about a little bit about the services that you provide?
Yeah, so I do what I do is relationship consulting. And so most of my clients are people who are exploring some kind of way of relating that's new to them. Most of my clients are in some kind of open relationship or considering it. So sometimes I have swingers or people who are who have agreements around recreational sex with people outside their dyadic partnership, but they're interested in developing more of a community or more of an emotional relationship, and they're not sure how to get that started. Sometimes I have couples or triads who are experiencing conflict in their relationship and they want a mediation session. So I do that also. Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you all heard it, folks. If you want some help with your relationships, a little mediation, hopefully not, but anything along those lines, check out Tanya at radicallyrooted.com. Thank you again, Tanya, so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks, James. It was my pleasure.
Thanks. And as always, thank you to our live audience for tuning in. Also, as a reminder, when we're live, you get no commercial interruptions, but the same can't be said for those podcast downloads. So if you want to avoid the commercial interruptions, be sure to catch us live Monday through Wednesday, or like tomorrow, we got a special Thursday edition, 2:30 Pacific time, or sign up for Patreon where you'll get access to our commercial-free RSS feed and support the show. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and wherever it is that you download your podcast if you haven't already, and please leave us a review. We'll really appreciate it. Thank you again, Tanya, for your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time.
Have a nice day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Practicing Polyamory podcast. Would you or someone in your polycule like to be a guest? Sign up at practicingpolyamory.com and join the conversation. Please support us by subscribing, liking, and following us on social media at Practicing Polya by clicking any of the affiliate links on our website or by subscribing at